Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And joining me today is Edwin Eisendrath, and he will be back on Thursday to host his new show. It's The Democracy Stupid, right here. And that is also the name of his Substack, which you should definitely subscribe to. But Edwin is no stranger to this. He hosts a radio show in Michigan. I'm sorry, that's where I live, in Chicago, my hometown, for Heartland Signal, The Big Picture. And he also has a long history as a Chicago alderman, the CEO of Chicago Sun-Times, and much more. So we're so happy to have him join us at Lincoln Square today, and again for his own show on Thursday. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, I know we were talking about the fact that the list of things to talk about this week will really spans a couple pages. But I figure that we probably should start with Trump's comments as he was signing his executive order that would ban flag burning, which of course goes against a Supreme Court decision. But during that press conference, he mused about being a dictator once again. And here's his mangled quote. They say we don't need him. Freedom, freedom. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. But then he said, but a lot of people are saying maybe we'd like a dictator. So, many people are saying, as Trump likes to say, that they would like a dictator. I don't find that to be true. I'm guessing that you don't either, Edwin.
Many people are saying he's unfit for office, and if Congress had even the iota of a backbone, they'd have thrown him out. That's what many people are saying.
Especially in Chicago, the next city that he has talked about invading. And I know your governor, J.B. Pritzker, had some strong words, but let's talk a little bit more about what he's doing. I mean, he's just been throwing out one piece of red meat for his base after another, as his polls have been declining over the economy slowing, and he's been facing so much heat over his refusal to release the Epstein files. So the latest one this week was, we're going to throw you in jail for burning a flag. Once again, Trump has decided that he's the ultimate authority. He doesn't need that pesky Supreme Court decision from 1989. But, to me, this is just part of the same pattern. He sent troops into D.C. He wants the press to cover things on his terms. And, to just be this nonstop spectacle and, to get us used to authoritarianism.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. It is definitely nonstop spectacle, but the spectacle is very dangerous. We should never get used to armed American troops on our own streets. It's an absolutely red line that should not ever be crossed. He's crossed it in D.C., where he has some additional legal authority. We will fight him in every possible way when he comes to a city like Chicago. And this notion that he is going to that flag burning executive order also included the establishment of a mobile strike force, right, that was going to be made up of National Guard members trained by the Pentagon that he could deploy to any city, anywhere, at any time, for any reason. This is absolutely not acceptable in America. We got to draw the line and say no,
Right.
absolutely no. And by the way, he thinks it's illegal to burn an American flag. I'm half tempted to go have a party and burn some Texas flags, because what they have done with this gerrymandering thing is Fort Sumter. They have said, we are going to start the first shot in a war against American democracy. And they did it for Trump, and it's also not acceptable. And believe me, Susan, when we finally win our democracy back, we are going to take measures to make sure these people are thrown out wherever they are. Governor Abbott, I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, you brought up what's going on in Texas. They succeeded in doing their gerrymandering ploy, which again, this is on top of the gerrymandering that this very red state, that's run by Republicans already did. And they did it because Trump said, go find me 5 more seats. The subtext is, I can't win in 2026 unless you help me,
Let's
which
stay with
is
that for a second, because there is good news here. There's a new poll came out this morning that has the Dems up by 8 in the generic House ballot.
mhm,
33% of the country say it's on the wrong track. I mean, I guess that means that's Trump's floor, right? But that leaves 67% of the country available to people who care about our democracy, right? And today there's a special election in Iowa. This is a state Senate seat that became vacant when the incumbent died of a heart attack or died of cancer earlier this year. Uh, it's a seat that Trump won 55-44, like
mhm,
Sioux City and the area outside of it.
right.
But the
Okay.
Democrat has a very good chance of winning that seat. And that would break the supermajority in, for God's sake, Iowa's state Senate. This is because what they're doing cannot win with the American people. What they're doing is vastly unpopular. And as you point out, the only way they can keep doing it is if elections are just decoration anymore and don't matter.
Right.
And I don't think Americans want that for sure.
And Iowa has become a reliably red state, starting,
Right,
I
right.
would say, probably in 2014, but certainly solidified with Trump's first election in 2016. And
Yep.
so, to win a state in West Iowa, the Sioux City is a conservative area. That says a lot. But, if you take a look at the special elections this year, Democrats have been overperforming consistently. And this has been in states red and blue. They have been flipping seats. They have been flipping not just competitive seats, but seats like this where they are double-digit Republican majority. And that is the kind of news that Trump is hearing in the Oval Office and is terrifying him. And, as much as he is trying to do this show of force, he started with LA by
Hmm.
dispatching the troops there. Then he moved on to Washington, D.C. Now he's talking about Baltimore and Chicago and any number of blue cities. This starts from a place of weakness. His poll numbers are down. His base is faltering because he promised the Epstein files. We all know why he won't deliver on that. And now he's playing footsie with a convicted child sex trafficker, Ghislaine Maxwell, and moving her to a minimum security prison. I mean, this is just disgusting. There are people who, genuinely believed that they were on the side of helping children, and that's why they believed in QAnon and fell down this rabbit hole. Now he is trying. He is on the verge of pardoning
You are on a
the
roll, and I'm loving it.
okay, he's on the verge of pardoning this monster, as her victims talked about her, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah,
He's on the side of victims. He does not care. And I do think that there are some people who are waking up to that.
a
And
lot of
so,
people are waking up
when
to it. I
they're
think there's national buyer's remorse. Like
yeah,
here's what I think. Remember that Ron DeSantis took over a college, a liberal college in
right,
Florida. It's called the New College.
right,
What happened? It's become a money pit for the state. They gave it 34 million in the last session. And what's happened to the students? Well, they can't they've had to recruit a whole bunch of new students and they only stay one semester and they flee. They're like, this is terrible. They can't keep students. The graduation rates are down. They keep lowering their admission standards. This is what he says. It's a model for what they're doing to the country. Let's make it, let's lower every possible standard to hire in the FBI, for example, which is what they're doing. Dangerous stuff, right? But
right,
people aren't staying. They just don't like to be part of anything this man touches.
right.
And right. And so there's national buyer's remorse, which is why we could win a seat in Iowa, why we're winning elections everywhere. And they want to say, I don't care. We own it now forever. We're going to keep it forever. And they aren't going to keep it forever.
Right. And I also think that part of this strategy to send troops in is to demoralize people for, to send the message, there's nothing you can do. We're in control. We will take over your cities. Don't even bother fighting this. Don't even bother showing up in 2026. And we all know that we have plenty of opportunities to still dissent in this
Wait,
country.
Susan, you don't think he's sending these troops in to reduce crime in our cities?
I'm skeptical,
Yeah,
yes. Yes.
yeah. It's not what he did in LA. It's not what he did in DC. And in Chicago, I'm guessing, at least some of them are going to be housed at Trump Tower at taxpayer expense, right? Because
Yes.
that's what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all a grift. Every time that Trump goes back to one of his properties, Mar-a-Lago or Bedford, he charges the US government for his Secret Service um, protection. And that's one of the ways that he's gotten rich off the presidency, one of the many ways. It's all corrupt.
Yeah, Anne
And
Applebaum has done a really good job of explaining this in her book Autocracy Inc. Isn't really about the United States, but it says these fascists have networks of corrupt financial structures, advanced surveillance, full time propagandists, control of coercive power, and international cooperation among these autocrats. All of those things are what Trump is building. All of them.
yeah,
Systematically, with Putin's help and his friend in North Korea. What he did to the South Korean president was disgusting in the
yeah.
Oval Office.
Absolutely. And that is how he treats our friends and allies. Look at what he did with Zelensky earlier this year. That's why so many of the European leaders came by his side this time so that it didn't happen again where JD Vance and Trump browbeat Zelensky and basically told him to give up. And when he says that, it's not just about Ukraine. This is about his vision that, if you want to, you can invade a country like Russia did, take what you want, and the weak should just acquiesce. That's been his modus operandi in the business world as well, and that is how he views the
Uh,
world.
I'm
It's a
so
very
happy you brought
cynical
that up
world.
because when all of the leaders of Europe come to the White House, that's a summit. That's a big deal, right? And the week before, Putin came here and met on
On
American
Trump's
soil.
invitation.
That's a summit. So we've had two major summits in 2 weeks. And what changed? What changed on
Nothing.
that battlefield? Zero. He accomplished nothing. He spent a fortune. He embarrassed us. He accomplished nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Nothing.
Trump,
There will be peace on day
Putin,
one. What's going on in Gaza? What's going on in the Donbass in Ukraine? Slaughter. This man, and he wants a Nobel Peace Prize.
yeah. I saw the latest headline, I think it was from ABC. Trump is so disappointed that Putin is continuing the bombing amid the peace talks. There are no peace talks. Putin played him like he always plays him, and he is just going back to cause as much destruction as possible, knowing that the US is too weak and too corrupt to do anything
Speaking of
under
corrupt and
Trump.
weak, we have not yet talked about his effort to pervert the Federal Reserve.
Yes. And just last night, he announced that he had fired Lisa Cook, who is a well-respected economist, came from Michigan State University. She is an African American woman, and as we know, he has disproportionately targeted people of color with these purges, women and people of color. We've seen this in the military and throughout the government. And he does not have the authority to remove her, but this is going to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, well, so let's just talk about your friends in the press who all said Trump fired her yesterday, which
Right.
is, of course, not true.
Right.
Accuracy is one of those things that's supposed to be important. Trump said, I fire you. That's not the same thing as firing. Like, he can't fire you, he can't fire me, and it turns out he can't fire her, right? So saying it doesn't make it true. And every time we report his words, like he is God, like he says, let there be light and there is light, we are doing a terrible disservice to truth and to our democracy. He can't
Yeah.
fire her. He doesn't work for her. She doesn't work for him. And the
And,
Supreme Court made that clear just a few months ago. Now they'll have a
right.
chance to say it again. So, um, but I wonder, right? A corrupt Fed is a danger to the economy. It is
Yes.
where it happens in the rest of the world. You get rampant inflation, and you get control of the banking system because they don't just do interest rates; they control the banking system. So
Right.
this is his chance to have complete control of our financial institutions. Imagine that. So
Right.
where are America's leading bankers? Where are our financial experts? Will they finally stand up? Will they finally stand up and say this will ruin America? Or are they going to say we better make our deal while we can? And I'm
Right.
guessing, Jamie Dimon, now I'm talking to you, that you're going to make your deal while you can and not put America first, not even put your industry first. Let's see. This is your moment. Prove me wrong.
And
And
that's
I
what
will.
we've seen. And that's what we've seen with Trump's ridiculous tariffs as well. He has told companies just eat the tariffs, and many of them have, because they're waiting for their huge tax cut that he passed, in the budget deal, and they're willing to suck up to him, get some special side deals. But, the piper has to be paid at some point. And that's why you're seeing Walmart raise their prices. And that's why you're seeing the back to school prices have soared.
Prices are going up.
This is hitting
Prices of
home.
energy way up. And look,
Absolutely. And that's even
farmers are about to
before.
get hit really hard, not just
Right.
from the tariffs, but from the SNAP cuts. That's about to happen to them. And I know just in my state, in Illinois, 9 rural hospitals are on the verge of closing. 9.
Yes. And
This
this
is
is a trend across the
devastating.
country. And that's not sustainable. And then, beyond just, I mean, there are so many ripple effects to that, because it's not just a matter of people getting sick and dying because they can't get care. That is the first problem, and that is the most fundamental one. But in many, many smaller cities, your hospital is your biggest employer. And so you're going to be talking about an economic collapse as well as a collapse of our health. And this is all destruction that does not have to happen. We have the strongest economy in the world.
Well, we
We
had it.
eh, we did, but
He
there's
was
no
handed it.
reason.
Yeah.
There's no reason for this. It's not like we have a worldwide depression yet, where banks are closing because we're back in the 1930s. This is a man who got the world's strongest economy from President Biden and decided to flush it down the toilet because he does not know what he's doing, and he's just out to collect as much money for himself and his cronies as possible.
Yeah. I mean, and he's collected what, 4 billion for his family in the time he's been president. I mean, at any other time in American history, it would have been a bipartisan, unanimous impeachment, right? You don't use the White House for your own personal gain. Um, um, I mean, just the ballroom, for gosh sake. That he wants
And
to,
what he's done to the Oval Office with all that gold leaf, making it look like it's like,
like the Kremlin.
French Revolution
Like the
times.
Kremlin. It looks like the
Yeah,
Kremlin. Yeah. I mean,
it
that's what he
does.
wants. It's this idea of how he intimidates people. I melt down that gold, if it's real, melt it down and give it to the charities. He's screwed.
And to your point about the media, it's incredible that he's sat there and bragged about how much all of this is costing to redo the White House, and nobody thought to ask him, like, well, isn't this an irresponsible use of taxpayer dollars? What happened to waste, fraud, and abuse? Apparently, that's only for people who are poor in this country, but the president can use our tax dollars for this kind of waste.
Susan, he pardoned a guy guilty of, one of the biggest Medicare scams ever, right? And so I mean, he doesn't care about waste, fraud, and abuse. It's all a lie. All of it. Every word coming out of his mouth is a lie. I mean,
Uh, That's an
right,
excellent book as well.
right. Yeah.
By Stuart Stevens.
Now we have more military purges this week. We have more purges at the FBI. That they are moving to gain coercive control of the country, coercive control, because Americans don't like what he's doing.
No.
And
In Washington, 79% of people do not like the occupation. And those numbers, are going to be repeated in every city he tries this. We're Americans. We're used to going where we please without troops everywhere.
I look, for a while in my life, I worked overseas, and one of the cities I loved was Beirut, but Beirut was not free. To go from
Mhm.
one side to the other, you had to go through a checkpoint because there was Hezbollah over there, there was a government over here. Donald Trump would have you go through checkpoints to go across your city, right? Particularly if you're black and you want to come down in the evening, you're going to go through a checkpoint. This
Right.
is appalling, horrible, Um, and it will not happen here in Chicago. It will not. And by the way, those soldiers who are being sent here, they're Americans. The National Guard troops, they're meant to be called up in an emergency. The rest of the time, they're supposed to be at work. They're with their families. This is very disruptive to them and their lives. They're not the enemy, right? We're going to go up to those National Guard troops and say, your family needs you. This is not where you want to be. We understand this is where not where you want to be. Put your gun down. Put it down.
And
I mean, I don't
let's not
expect American troops to do to us what the Chinese troops did in Tiananmen Square. Trump does. He's ordered them to shoot people in the knees. Remember that?
right. Yeah.
But I don't think American troops are going to shoot in American crowds. I don't believe it.
There's nothing more than Trump would like than to provoke violence in these cities so that he can say, this is why I'm here. See, Democratic run cities, they're out of control. I'm bringing law and order. He wants that kind of a spectacle. He craves it. And it's really disturbing.
Yeah, well, our protests, and we have had many against this man and his regime, have all been peaceful and
Yes.
loving. And, people who don't generally agree standing arm in arm because they care about our democracy. That's happening here. That's happening in cities all over the country. There is not a world in which that looks like a violent demonstration. Um, and everybody's got their phone and everybody can see it. So he's not
Right.
going to get away with it.
Right.
If there's
And
violence, it's going to be caused by the Proud Boys in the crowd. It's going to be caused by the provocateurs on the right who are desperate to make his fantasy come true.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm a native Chicagoan. I know you're a lifelong Chicagoan. I mean, this is not the city that you want to go into if you're trying to win hearts and minds. There's no way that Chicagoans are going to go along with this. And I've been watching Republicans for years badmouth Chicago. It's their whipping boy. They always want to talk about how it's the most violent city. And it's ridiculous because yes, like any city, Chicago has problems. Crime is going down. It's a wonderful center of culture, and it's fun. And we've seen a real revitalization, especially with parks. And if you want to go into a city in the summer, you will see tons of people out all the time because it's a great place to be.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
love
not a
Chicago. I don't
place.
recommend it to people in February, but
No.
I do love the city. But Susan, I'm looking at some notes I made. Look, our crime is down. Our violent murder rate's down 50%. Right, our crime rate is way down.
Right.
But it went down in large part, because of gun violence prevention grants and uh, some street violence prevention activities that were funded by the federal government, that were funded as part of the American Recovery Act. And
Right.
Donald
Passed
Trump has
by
cut 158 million from gun violence prevention and 800 million in grants just this April, in violence prevention grants this April. Look, this man does not care about crime. And let me remind you, and those of you who know about Chicago, for federal crimes, thank God he also this man committed state crimes. Donald Trump uh, pardoned Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover was the worst gang member Chicago's ever had. I mean, he was Al Capone on steroids, more violent, and he's serving a life sentence in prison. He was
And
serving federal charges and state charges. Donald Trump pardoned him because he
he
got
also
asked by, I don't
pardoned.
know, somebody, right? This is not a guy who cares about crime.
No.
I mean, of the January 6th folks he pardoned, a bunch of them had prior records for burglary, for theft, for assault, for illegal weapons use, and he pardoned them, and they're back on our streets. This
And
man does
several
not
of them
care
have.
about your safety, not one
Right.
bit. It's a lie.
Several of those J6ers have been busted for child porn since they've been,
Oh,
let
well, there's a
out.
crime he really doesn't care about.
No, he doesn't. And we should also mention that another famous Chicagoan that Trump pardoned was Rod Blagojevich, the former Democratic governor who was imprisoned for massive corruption for selling a U.S. Senate seat. But that's the kind of guy that Trump loves doing business. And I'm never going to stop reminding everyone Trump was convicted of 34 felonies. I know he was elected anyway, but you cannot change those facts. He is corrupt. He has been held accountable to a small extent by the law. He got his get out of jail free card by being reelected. But at some point,
Yeah.
if we ever get past the point where he is not in office and he is still alive, there are many crimes that he should be prosecuted
Yeah.
for, and they're very easy cases to win.
He and his crooked family, all of them.
Yes.
But like Susan, we keep talking about this because there are people somewhere under some rocks who don't yet know what a crook, what a scoundrel he is. But America, by and large, is waking up to that, as we say, buyer's remorse. So there's good news. If we can protect our elections, if we can push folks like the big bankers now to say, this isn't in America's interest, what you're doing. If we can push our universities to stand up and not cave, if we can tell people to go to the law firms that haven't caved and protect civil society, if we can guide people to journalism organizations that don't have government monitors in their newsrooms now. They're still out there. If we can help people do this, we can not only save the democracy, but we can rebuild it on stronger foundations.
And I want to talk a little bit about Governor Pritzker's response because
Wasn't that good?
it was. He's given some incredible speeches, I think, especially during Trump's second term. And I feel like he brings a real moral clarity to the moment that we're in. And I know you've known him for years. And
Yeah.
so do you feel like this really resonated with people in the state?
So this is yesterday where JB got out and there was a big event and by the way, Chicago looked pretty good behind him,
Yeah.
right along
Yeah.
by the river. Um, yeah, he did a great job. I mean, look, he made clear he gave voice to what many of us here believe and feel, which is to the president of the United States: don't you dare send your military into our city. Don't you dare. This is a great. I mean, in some ways, the most American of cities. In some ways, it's vibrant. It's got a great diversity of industry. Its people are diverse, and we manage, from sometimes better and sometimes worse, to have a government that helps us move forward. But that's like a lot of places, and yet we get along. We do our our best every day to work hard. It's a very hard working city, and we don't need this fool sending young men with their guns uh, that will only end up killing people. I mean, there's nothing they can do, right? Maybe they can hang out by the famous bean. Maybe they can walk along the lakefront, greet the tourists as they come here. Although in DC they drove the tourists away,
Yeah.
because people don't really like that. Um,
No.
but as I say, JB did a great job of giving voice to our um, concerns, our outrage, uh, and our hopes for a better day.
Yeah. I wanna read this take from CNN, and because I feel like it encapsulates everything that's wrong with media coverage today. President Donald Trump and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker are the type of foe the other loves to hate. On one level, their escalating showdown over the president's threat to send in the National Guard onto the streets of Chicago is a convenient political feud. Trump thrives when he has an enemy to target. His political appeal is based on the premise that he is stronger than anyone who tries to challenge or restrain him. This is bullshit.
I'm
This is a
glad I
president.
wasn't sure whether I could say that word, on camera, but it was what
Yes.
horse race bullshit, right? Is
Yes.
absolutely irrelevant to the moment we live in.
Yes. I mean, this is a president who is acting illegally to assume dictatorial powers to take over cities that are run by his political enemies. This is not politics as usual.
I mean, that's the same kind of reporting that you get when you say Ukraine started the war,
Right.
right? It's just nice.
Which
Just,
I think Trump might actually believe, which another point for Putin in knowing how to play him.
yep. I mean, it's just utter nonsense.
So
Nonsense.
I'm gonna give a plug to a column that we ran today. Made for TV Authoritarianism. It's a column that Jennifer Scholze wrote. And she talks about the takeover in DC and how people posting on social media are countering the narrative without, this is all spontaneous, but people are, posting about what these troops are doing and how people are reacting. And it's a real counter narrative to, literally the Trump camera crew that's following everyone around to do this sort of authoritarian cosplay reality TV show. But you really should read it. She's one of the best media critics around. And I feel like it really captures the moment that we're in right now.
I can't really leave that alone, Susan. Jennifer is a superb media critic. She is a great newswoman, and I'm lucky enough to be married to her. So I get her take all day long. It's fabulous. I'm thrilled that you published that column. I thought it was superb.
Absolutely. And, before we go today, I do want to talk just a little bit about your upcoming show.
Mm.
Coming up at noon on Thursday, it's The Democracy Stupid. And you'll be talking with Lavora Barnes, who's the former Democratic Party chair in my state, Michigan. But, I think this is a really important show because, it's not just talking about the moment we're in, but talking about what we're going to do to fight back. And you've been in this fight for such a long time, and so I'm really excited that you're going to be bringing this to Lincoln Square every week.
Thank you, Susan. I've enjoyed our conversations, and I'm glad they will continue. And I'm looking forward to adding, a little more content to your growing network.
Thank you. And I know that uh you have such deep roots in Chicago, so I'm looking forward to, you talking with some of the leaders there from across the Democratic Party. But why don't you tell us what you're hoping that the audience will get out of your show every week?
Yeah, well, I hope I can connect the dots for people a little bit about all of these pieces of news. It's overwhelming. There's so many stories every week, right? And as you and I said, it's only Tuesday, and I made a list of this week's stories, and I ran out of room on the page, right?
Yeah,
So we have to develop the mindset where we think in the categories that matter, and these stories add to the picture, but we don't get overwhelmed by them. So I'm hoping that we can fully understand the moment we're in rather than be overwhelmed by the moment we're in, and learn how to fight back. Really how to fight back. And fight back based on our love for this democracy and our values.
absolutely. Um, I think the name for the show is perfect. I'm so looking forward to it, and I'm glad that we'll be back next week to talk about whatever else
Whatever
Trump
happens between
pulls.
now and then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Susan.
Uh, uh, Thank you so much.